this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Here's the headline from you today. Sad and shameful. Cardano founder slams XRP community for spreading conspiracies about him. Now, that's rich, considering that he said all of the ETHgate related stuff, the fact-based stuff that has been uncovered for almost 2 years at this point. He said that that stuff was the invention of XRP community members, and that it's a grand conspiracy, and that's his term, grand conspiracy. And he then went on later to state that these improprieties having to do with the SEC don't even matter. And I covered that in videos just yesterday, but the saga continues today. I didn't think that it would, because Charles said that he was done talking about this stuff, as I'll highlight in a minute, but oh, there's more to say. Charles Hoskinson had more to say today, and Attorney Deaton had more to say today, and Charles Hoskinson is doing himself no favors. So look, I'll say this at the outset of the video. This is more proof that Charles Hoskinson has strong opinions about a topic that he is not fully educated on. It's okay to be wrong. I'm wrong. You listening to this, you're wrong sometimes, right? We're all wrong sometimes. It's okay to be wrong. But Charles, co-founder of Ethereum, mind you, and the founder of Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, has been confronted with an endless onslaught of facts that prove he is wrong. It's available to him. He has to have seen the information at this point, and he absolutely refuses to admit fault. Not only that, he's really digging in his heels and doubling and tripling down on how right he is. But everyone watching what he's saying knows that he's wrong. And it's pretty clear at this point that he must know as well. This type of behavior erodes trust, which is why it's best in life to admit you're wrong when you know you're wrong. I've been saying that on this channel for years on end, and I firmly mean that. I practice it in my own life. I'm not perfect, but I do my best to practice that. You know, because it's not fun to admit when you're wrong. I know that. Everybody knows that. But, you know, you'll also see Charles tell Attorney John Deaton that he's arguing with him, when in reality, Attorney Deaton is engaging in civil discourse on a topic of contention. Look, I agree with Charles Hoskinson on almost everything he has said having to do with the SEC and government overreach. So when he called the ETH stuff a grand conspiracy and said none of it matters, he didn't suddenly become an enemy from my point of view. And he certainly is not an enemy today, so far as I'm concerned. But I have lost a degree of respect at this point, because I find it almost impossible to believe that he actually thinks what he said was right and true. He still seems like an overall good person, but this has damaged his reputation and trustworthiness to some degree, in my opinion, and all because it's too painful for him to admit when he's wrong. That's what I think is going on here. He's a smart guy. He's a logical guy. And it's just the two things. It's just the two things. The grand conspiracy thing and then saying none of it matters. That's it. I agree with him on almost 100% of what he's had to say on this topic. Almost 100%. There's these two things, though, but they're pretty big things that, for understandable reasons, the XRP community really doesn't like. That's what I'm talking about here. But that's also why I mentioned yesterday, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. You know, I think that he's been forthright and honest, intellectually honest up to this point. And so that's why I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, he said two things that I thought were out of line, and I was like, oh, I think he's probably just missing some facts. It's probably all that it is. But then he just dug in his heels rather than say he's wrong. And then, to make it worse, then he made it out as though he's being harassed by the XRP community, and that we as XRP community members started the problem when he's the one that said the factually incorrect stuff. No, his bogus claims are what started all this, and he won't acknowledge that. You know, in addressing this the other day, as I highlighted in my video, he had this, a bunch of stuff to state, you know, on SEC, this and that, and I agreed with, like, I think 100% of it. But he didn't address the reasons that people are coming at him and critiquing him. It's the two things, the grand conspiracy claim and then the claim that this doesn't matter. That's it. And he just won't address it. And so here's what's happened now. You have David Goxie, and this is from yesterday, and I'll be real brief on this, and then the rest of it's all brand new stuff here, but I want to make sure you guys are aware of this. There's David Goxie just the other day. He wrote, he tagged Charles Hoskinson and said, "How about you and John Deaton come on my podcast? My guest has agreed, reschedule, and we can talk about these issues like mature adults. I know how to mod, plus you owe me one." Charles Hoskinson agreed. He said, "Sure, we can figure something out. If anything, to get people to chill out. This whole affair is bizarre." John Deaton responded, "I'm happy to have a healthy, civil, and respectful discussion with Charles. In the end, we are all on the same team fighting for smart, tailored regulations and against regulatory overreach." So there you go. It seemed to be set, but then Charles Hoskinson, after more XRP holders throughout the day telling him why he's wrong effectively and him not liking it, he views it as harassment, by the way. And some people were actually rude, to be fair. Like, there are some people that were rude, but that's a minority of the XRP community. Charles Hoskinson then came back and he said, "I want nothing more to do with any of this conversation. Best of luck." So after he tweeted out that, I was like, okay, well, I guess that's it. I guess the whole thing's just going to go away because people will eventually stop talking about it. But then this happened. What I'm about to share with you from John Deaton prompted Charles Hoskinson to jump back in today. So what I'm sharing with you now was written by John Deaton last night, though. And he wrote, John Deaton shared this article, which I also shared from the Crypto Basic, titled "Cardano Founder Says XRP Holders Claim About Hinman's Conflict of Interest with Ethereum is a Grand Conspiracy." So John Deaton shared that and wrote, "This is why people called you out, Charles Hoskinson, because you're a leader in this community and you make headlines like this when you speak and your comments undermine the important work of Jason Foster and Empower Oversight, a nonprofit DC watchdog that isn't a part of the XRP community. Chris Larson or anyone else can tweet support for you, and I'll stand next to you shoulder to shoulder." So I think that's a typo from him. "In the fight against regulation by enforcement and government overreach, but it won't change. You were 100% wrong in saying grand conspiracy, and it doesn't matter." Absolutely on point, John. Absolutely, that is it. And it really is that simple. I agree with almost 100% of what Charles Hoskinson says, but this fact that he won't admit he was wrong and digging in the heels, it's not a good look. And he's had enough time at this point. I was a bit more tempered. If you watch my videos on the topic yesterday, I was a bit, more tempered. I was holding back. But then there's more developments since I recorded those videos, and at this point, I'm just like I can only give so much leeway and think, okay, maybe he just doesn't know. Now, he knows. Oh, he knows. He knows exactly what was done, and he's not addressing it. He just doesn't want to address it. That's not what mature adults do. It's just disappointing. And again, we can all have like immature moments, so I'm not trying to like crucify him. Maybe it sounds more harsh than I actually think about him in this video. I still think overall positive of him. I really do. It's not that I have no respect. I still respect him. I have less respect as a result of this behavior, because it's if this is how you behave and you won't admit you're wrong, it's like how am I supposed to trust other things that you're saying are true when you're demonstrating this? See, and that's why it harms reputation and harms the trustworthiness of the individual when the whole world, everyone observing this, Charles, can see that you're wrong and doesn't believe that you don't know it. Everybody watching this believes that you know it, and I think you know it. That's where the harm comes in. It's because you're having such a hard time, I think, of it just admitting that you're wrong. That's the trouble. That's what we're all saying here. So here was Charles Hoskinson's response to what I just shared with you from Attorney Deaton. "You're a lawyer, John, and understand full well that the corruption discussion will have no impact on the current is XRP a security conversation. It's a completely separate matter and should be treated as such. All it does is fragment the space and reduce the chance of winning. You're arguing with someone who has spent years fighting government corruption, from the audit the Fed days to calling out the COVID madness. It's okay to be angry about selective enforcement. It's literally institutionalized with BitLicense, but proper steps need to be taken." And so I read that and I had a response which may be very similar to what you listening think as upon discovering that this was Charles Hoskinson's message from today, just 3 hours ago. And John Deaton had a similar response to like what my gut reaction was upon reading that. And he shared the following thoughts. So this is from John Deaton today, just a few hours ago. Charles, maybe you are not up to speed on my efforts, but I have been treating the conflict/corruption issue separately. On my cryptolaw.us site, I have a Connect to Congress app that sends messages directly to a voter's 2 senators and representative. That app has caused over 60,000 messages to the elected officials asking for them to make inquiries and support Empower Oversight's referral to the IG for an investigation. My efforts as amicus counsel is different. I have focused those efforts on showing the court the SEC has unlawfully expanded the Howey case by alleging the token itself is a security and secondary market sales independent of Ripple are not within the SEC's jurisdiction. I have no idea why you suggest my efforts have fragmented anything or reduced the chance of winning. I can fight 2 separate battles at the same time. Let me just pause right here. John is so right about that. For Charles Hoskinson to make that assertion, the comment which I already read to you about the fragmentation here effectively and reduced chances of winning, like all of this, it just, I think it further proves the point that, like, even though there's been information presented to him, and I'm certain that he's seen that by now, I still think he doesn't understand what John Deaton is doing here. Not to a sufficient level to have such firm opinions about what he's saying here. And that's why in life, like, if I don't have firm, data evidence to believe such a thing, then I might say something as strong as, I suppose something might be the case. Well, why didn't you just do that, Charles? Because you don't know. You're stating things and making comments based on, I guess, assumptions or something. I don't know. But what you stated here just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Attorney Deaton continues. I don't have to adopt the approach of saying corruption is everywhere, so let me not expose it here while I fight there. And by the way, Charles, I'm not arguing with you. I said I believed you are a good and decent man who likely used unfortunate words in a tweet, that limits words, that were unfortunate to make a broader point I support and agree with. Empower Oversight's efforts are separate from me in this case. And that's the end of what he had to say. And so I agree. I think, look, Charles Hoskinson unquestionably has been a net plus for the space. That doesn't change. I'm just really disappointed in this particular behavior. That's it. It really does just come down to that. So I don't want to overblow it. It's obviously I'm going to cover it because this is what the community's talking about, obviously. But it does kind of nag at me a little bit. You know what I mean? It's annoying. I don't, it's not reasonable. I'll just leave it there. You guys let me know what you think. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.